Hi, this is a short video explaining some of the key features of Farming Forecaster. When you first come onto the site, this is most likely the screen you're going to see. Map of Australia, localities in New South Wales that are part of it, Tasmania, Western Australian sites. We click on Tasmania. We're actually videoing a live site, so there's just a bit of time for things to occur. So there we are. You're in the region Tasmania. If you want to look at other sites for some reason, just hit the change button and it takes you back to the map and you select what you want. Learn to use Farming Forecaster. There's some really good short YouTubes about each section. Goes into more detail than I'm going to go into. If you haven't used it before or you forget something, if you go in there, you're going to get a 4 or 5 minute explanation of a particular part. So it'll refresh your memory or you'll pick up new data, and talks about how you look at sites and how you interpret the information. This drop down box has all the sites in Tasmania now. Apsley Park just happens to be at the top because they're alphabetical. So let's keep moving down. One of the key things you must do when you come in is this last update. So what this is saying is this probe information, and we're filming this at the end of February 2024, that was updated 2 hours ago. So it's 10:30 in the morning. So this data was 8:30 in the morning on the 29th of February 24. The pasture data was updated 3 days ago. The probe information is updated from the field on a daily basis, a number of times during the day. The pasture information, some of it is updated monthly, some of it is updated every 7 days. But if you go into the pasture and it says it hasn't been updated for 20 days, it's giving you an indication there's been a bit of an issue. Left-hand side is the probe. Right-hand side is the pasture forecast. If you're looking at this on a mobile phone, they're one above the other, but it's always exactly the same information. These little arrows are telling you what's happened to soil moisture over the last 7 days and last 30 days. This probe hasn't been in the ground for 12 months yet. Once it goes past 12 months, you'll get what's happened a year ago. So basically, the probe's telling us at present it's registering no available plant moisture at the various levels. If we keep coming down, there are 3 big blue buttons: regional map, more probe detail, more pasture detail. Let's look at regional map first. So the website's just going off, picking up the information from the network. A computer in Ballarat is where this information sits. There we have a map of all the sites in Tasmania. There are 3 extra sites which will appear in early March. There'll be another one up in this region and 2 over here. So at present, what we're looking at, you can zoom in on these. You might know the drop-down box was the name of a property. You might know what the property is. If you put your cursor over it, it'll actually tell you what the property name is. So that's helpful for people who don't know the names, trying to work out where to go. So you can get into sites by actually coming here and clicking on it. So if I click on that, there the Oak Bank data comes up, more probe details. It's suddenly taken me into the Oak Bank data set. So we'll keep talking while we're in here now. Very similar, you know, the simple fact at present is Tassie's dry. Here's a site where we've got it's 22% drier than it was this time last year. Here we've now got a map of the soil moisture graph over the last 12 months. So here we are. This is the current date. It's up to 29th of February, and back at this end, it's at the start of March. So we can get a picture. We're certainly drier at this site now than we were at this time last year. We had good moisture through that period, the rapid drop off due to growth, some rain events over summer, dry period now. Now this site hasn't gone long enough, but I clicked on previous year. As sites get more and more detailed, you can get a graph not only of the last 12 months, but in fact the 12 months before that, or you can jump down and say, show me what the last 12 months is compared to what it was like 3 years ago. So gives you the option of looking back historically at where soil moisture was, and producers can find that handy. They've got a bit of an idea of how the season panned out. You mightn't quite remember what it was like 2 or 3 years ago. Well, the data's there, you can look at it. If we keep going down, there's some information about monthly rainfall that's been recorded in blue and what the long-term average for that site is, that locality. There's a map, rainfall chart. So this site, 40 mils in January this year, it's only had 7 mils. Some soil temperature information. And then there's also some information about the site, what the soil type's like, etc. So you just get a bit more of a feeling where it is, what's happening, etc. So you can place some weighting on the value of that site to helping you. Now I want to go back to the home page. So here's the home up in the top left-hand corner. I'll just click on that. Rightio, now we're back on the screen. So we've dealt with, we went to the regional map, and from that regional map, I could go straight into more probe detail. So I won't click on that because that'll just take us back to where we were. One key thing is that this information does not drive this pasture forecast. This is driven separately to this. So if there's a breakdown in the probe or something goes wrong, people think, oh, therefore this is wrong because the probe isn't working. That's not the case. There is no transfer of information from this side to this side. And why is that? You'll notice in the background here, we've got shading. There's some red, white, red, brown, green. That is historical data of pasture mass for this locality over the last 30 years. To generate that, we need daily weather data for the last 30 years. So that's daily weather data from the 1st of January 1993 up to the current. We can't get that weather data from this side. So we've got to go and get this weather data from a source that can give us the amount of data we need in terms of maximum, minimum, relative humidity, wind speed, solar radiation, all these factors that this doesn't give us. And we need it for a long period of time. So what we do is Australia is divided up into 5 kilometre square grids, and there is weather data for each of those grids all the time. So we go and pick, we know the latitude and longitude of this place. We use that to find the right grid, and then we download that gridded weather data to drive this side of the equation. So it doesn't matter what's happening. You can generate this information without having a probe. So in New South Wales, we have a number of, we call virtual sites. This data is being generated, but there's no probe there because we get this data from the 5K gridded sites. And one of the key things in understanding Farming Forecaster is this historical data. It gives us a reference point to compare the forecast lines against. So where the brown meets the green is the 50% line. So little scale here, the green is covering the 50 to 90%. So they're the above average years. The brown is covering the 25 to 50, and the red's covering the 25 to 10. And there's some data. We have some years. There's 3 years because there's 30 years of data in here. There's 3 years of data which would sit below down here. So the really tough years, the green herbage mass is down at this level. So what's this saying? In really good years, green feed at this site has kicked away in early Feb. In tough years, that is not occurring to mid-April. It would normally occur in March. That's what the historical data is telling us. Now, the lines are the forecast lines. These are drawn on the first of the month for each site. So this takes into account of what the soil moisture and pasture was on the property on the 31st of January 2024, and then it uses historical weather data to draw this plume of potential pasture. If things stay dry, the red line is a reflection of what could happen to pasture. The yellow line is the 50%, so there's 50% of the data's below that, 50% above. That's the 90%. I don't tend to look at the 90%. I tend to look at those three most of the time. And what we're really doing is comparing about how they sit. So the 50% line is basically travelling through the green period, which is that yellow line. Its cousin historically is where the brown and the green meet. So the forecast is better than the history. The 25% line, its cousin is where the red and the brown meet. It's travelling the same. The red line, its cousin is where the white hits the red. So these are really just behaving. The forecasts are behaving very much like history has. Now you'll notice there's a black line here. The black line gets drawn every 7 days. So this is coming along, and really what this is telling us is that in this year, 2024, this tends to be following the red line. It's not following the yellow line. It's not following the brown. It's following the red. So comparing the forecasts against history is really that's more important than worrying about what the herbage mass figures are on this side. The other thing we have is 2 buttons. At present, this is climatology. So this is using past historical weather data to generate this potential future growth. If I click on the Access button, Access is the program the Bureau of Met uses to generate seasonal forecasts. We've been able to access some data, forecast data out of there, 33 different weather files generated at the 1st of February for the next 3 months. If we click between the two, that's really telling us that the forecast is tending to be a little bit drier than climatology. How these two relate will vary. A number of years ago, when you clicked Access, the forecast lines look better than climatology. At present, it's the other way around. Producers can make their own mind up of which of that information they want to look at. That pops up when I put over that little cursor. So it just gives you, again, a reminder of what occurs, what's driving it. If we go down the bottom, there's a whole lot of weather data down in the bottom left-hand corner. And again, there's a more weather data forecast. This ends up giving you weekly data, potential rainfall, max winds, wind speeds, etc. And then you can, in fact, get it on a 3-hourly basis. So if I just keep scrolling through, again, chance of rain, rainfall, temperature, wind, some delta T, some spray risk data over the next 7 days in 3-hour pieces. Similar information as you get from the Met-I side of BOM, but the producers wanted it on one site. So that's why it's there now. If I change the locality, this data changes, because this weather data is for those 5 kilometre square grids. It's not for southern Tasmania, it's for that grid. It was updated 11 hours ago. I go back to the home page. Now, here's a example, I've gone to a different site. In this one, you'll see the black line. There was a slight error in the other one. See how the black line's been drawn? It's told us what's happened for 3 weeks, and you can definitely see the black line is in fact tracking on the red, or in fact is even starting to show it's getting a bit more negative to the red. So through this month, while the starting position was very good, it's been incredibly dry, and the system's really drying out. So on the 1st of March, this is all redone again. And on the 1st of March, the starting points are going to be at a very dry soil. So that's going to influence where these lines go. In this particular case, we'll notice the 50% line here is travelling well below its historical cousin, as I say. The 50% line's travelling down at the 25% line. Red's right down here. That's not a, I'm on access at present. If I do climatology, that looks a bit better. So certainly at present, access is dropping, is a lot more negative. But if we look here, here's the climatology one. This is the black line we've followed. We've certainly bypassed the 50%. We've certainly bypassed the 25%. And in fact, we're now starting to get more negative than the red line. So as of the end of February, the pasture forecast is not looking great. That's redone again on the 1st of March, and then during March, the black line's drawn. So you're always getting this update of what's going on. You click on more pasture data, you get some explanation of the sort of system that's been modelled. There's that's where the probe is. That's the 5 kilometre square grid of data that's been used to generate that pasture forecast. We've seen that before. This is the plant available moisture that the model is seeing. So what that's saying at present over the last 30 years for these particular dates, and this is a 3-day average at the end of February, it is very dry compared to that's historically that site. It's almost as dry as it's ever been down there at present. A picture of what's happening to ground cover, an important thing. We must protect our soils. That's giving an idea. Ground cover is still going to be okay compared to history. We're still travelling well because we've had such good seasons, but it's trending down. And there can be information on other factors, which I'm not going to go into now. They're the sort of things you'd go and look at the video. So that's a quick overview of how you navigate your way around the Farming Forecaster website. The only way you get confidence in this is looking at it, using it. You don't need it. Is just as relevant to anyone. If you're surrounded by probes, it's relevant. You don't need a probe on your site. The quality of the data you get 5 and 10 kilometres away is of great value to a property. Don't think, oh, it's only the people who have the probe or the forecast. Because when we use the forecast, we use 5 kilometre square weather. So that takes some of the individual rainfall at a particular site out of play. The soil types we put in there are typical soil types for the region. It's not exactly the soil type where this is. So that tends to make it more regional relevant rather than specific to a site. Thank you.